The staccato bursts of machine gun fire pierced the air, punctuated by the ear-shattering booms of artillery explosions. The acrid smell of smoke and sweat hung heavy over the chaos, as the Allied forces struggled to establish a foothold on the blood-soaked beaches of Normandy. It was June 6, 1944, and the fate of the world hung in the balance. I was there, amidst the mayhem, my heart racing with every snap of a rifle or scream of a wounded soldier. The cacophony of war was deafening, a never-ending barrage of sound that threatened to consume me whole. And yet, amidst the chaos, I couldn't shake the feeling that something was off, a nagging sense that the battle unfolding before me was only part of a much larger, more complex story. As I looked around, I saw the bravery and sacrifice of the soldiers, the calculated risk-taking of the commanders, and the sheer scale of the operation. But I also saw the unseen threads that connected it all. The web of deception, encryption, and misdirection that had been woven over months, even years, to bring us to this moment. It was a story of secrets and lies, of codebreakers and spies, of a hidden layer of strategy that would change the course of history. This was the story of Operation Fortitude, the Allied deception plan that would prove to be the decisive factor in the success of D-Day. To understand the significance of Operation Fortitude, we must first delve into the geopolitics of the time. The world was at war, with the Axis powers of Germany, Italy, and Japan seeking to dominate the globe. The Allies, comprising the United States, Great Britain, and the Soviet Union, were determined to stop them. The war in Europe had been raging for years, with the Nazis having overrun much of the continent. The Allies knew that a massive invasion of Nazi-occupied France was necessary to turn the tide of the war, but they also knew that the Germans were expecting such a move. The challenge was to deceive the enemy into believing that the invasion would take place elsewhere, thereby weakening their defenses and increasing the chances of Allied success. This is where the art of deception through encryption came into play. The Allies had been working tirelessly to break the German Enigma code, a complex system of encryption that the Nazis used to communicate with their troops and commanders. The Enigma machine, with its rotating wheels and substitution tables, was thought to be unbreakable, but a team of brilliant codebreakers at Bletchley Park in England had been working to crack the code. Led by the brilliant mathematician Alan Turing, the team had developed a machine called the Bombay, which could process the vast number of possibilities and help to decipher the encrypted messages. The breaking of the Enigma code gave the Allies a significant advantage, as they could now intercept and read German communications. But the Nazis were not the only ones using encryption. The Allies were also using their own systems to communicate with each other. The problem was that these systems were not foolproof, and the Germans had developed their own code-breaking capabilities. The Allies needed a way to send false information to the Germans, to deceive them into believing that the invasion would take place elsewhere. This is where Operation Fortitude came in, a massive deception plan that would use encryption and misdirection to convince the Germans that the main invasion would take place at the Pas de Calais, rather than Normandy. The plan was complex and involved multiple layers of deception. The Allies created a fake army, the 1st United States Army Group, FUSAG, which was supposedly stationed in southeastern England, opposite the Pas de Calais. The FUSAG was given a fictional commander, General George Patton, who was known for his aggressive tactics. The Allies then began to send fake radio messages and other communications, all encrypted, using the same systems that the Germans were trying to break. These messages were designed to convince the Germans that the FUSAG was preparing to invade the Pas de Calais, and that the Normandy landings were merely a diversion. But the deception didn't stop there. The Allies also used double agents, spies, who were working for the Allies but pretending to work for the Germans, to feed false information to the enemy. These agents, such as Juan Pujol Garcia, a Spanish double agent codenamed Garbo, would send messages to their German handlers, all of which were carefully crafted to reinforce the idea that the invasion would take place at the Pas de Calais. The Germans, convinced that they had a reliable source of information, would then adjust their defenses accordingly, weakening their positions in Normandy. As the days turned into weeks, and the weeks turned into months, the Allies continued to feed false information to the Germans. The deception was so convincing that even the German high command was taken in, with Hitler himself believing that the main invasion would take place at the Pas de Calais. The Allies, meanwhile, were busy preparing for the real invasion, using the time and resources gained by the deception to build up their forces and plan their attack. And so, on June 6, 1944, the Allies launched their invasion of Normandy, catching the Germans off guard and quickly establishing a foothold on the continent. The battle was fierce and intense, with both sides suffering heavy casualties. But the Allies had the advantage, thanks to the deception and misdirection of Operation Fortitude. The Germans, believing that the main invasion was still to come at the Pas de Calais, held back their reserves, waiting for the real invasion to take place. By the time they realized their mistake, it was too late, and the Allies had already secured a vital foothold in Europe. As I stood on the beaches of Normandy, surrounded by the chaos and destruction of war, I couldn't help but feel a sense of awe at the complexity and sophistication of Operation Fortitude. It was a testament to the power of human ingenuity and creativity, a reminder that even in the darkest of times, there is always hope, and always a way to outwit and outmaneuver the enemy. And as I looked out at the sea of faces, all of whom had played a part in this epic story, I knew that I had to tell this story, to share it with the world, and to ensure that the bravery and sacrifice of those who had fought and died would never be forgotten. As the Allied forces approached the shores of Normandy, the Germans were well prepared to defend their positions. The 352nd Infantry Division, led by General Dietrich Kreis, had heavily fortified the coast with a series of strongpoints, including the notorious Widerstandsnest 62, a heavily fortified bunker complex that housed a combination of machine guns, artillery, and mortar positions. The Allies, however, had a few tricks up their sleeve, including the innovative use of specialized tanks designed to tackle the German defenses. The first phase of the battle began with an intense naval bombardment, as the Allied fleet unleashed a barrage of shells on the German positions. The USS Texas, a battleship with a main armament of 10 14-inch guns, led the charge, firing over 250 rounds of high-explosive shells at the German strongpoints. Meanwhile, the British cruiser HMS Glasgow, armed with 12 6-inch guns, targeted the German artillery positions, attempting to silence their guns. As the naval guns fell silent, the Allied aircraft took to the skies, with squadrons of P-47 Thunderbolts and P-51 Mustangs providing close air support to the invading troops. The next phase of the battle saw the introduction of the specialized tanks, designed to tackle the German defenses. The British had developed a range of tanks specifically for this purpose, including the Churchill AVRE, a modified version of the Churchill tank equipped with a 290mm petard mortar, capable of firing a 40-pound explosive charge. The Americans, meanwhile, had developed the M4 Sherman DD, a tank equipped with a flotation device that allowed it to swim ashore, providing close support to the infantry as they landed. The Germans, however, were not without their own technological advancements, and their Panther tanks, with their powerful 75mm guns and advanced armor, posed a significant threat to the Allied armor. As the Allied troops began to disembark from their landing craft, they were met with a hail of machine gun fire from the German positions. The Germans had carefully sighted their machine guns to cover the beaches, and the Allied troops were forced to take cover behind whatever obstacles they could find. The specialized tanks, however, were able to provide a degree of protection, with the Churchill AVREs using their petard mortars to blast a path through the German defenses. The M4 Sherman DDs, meanwhile, provided close support to the infantry, using their 75mm guns to take out German strongpoints. The THIRD phase of the battle saw the introduction of the Allied infantry, who began to pour ashore in increasing numbers. The Americans, led by the 1st and 29th Infantry Divisions, landed on Omaha Beach, where they faced some of the toughest resistance. The Germans had fortified the bluffs overlooking the beach, and the Americans were forced to fight their way up the steep slopes, using a combination of artillery, air support, and sheer determination to overcome the German defenses. The British and Canadians, meanwhile, landed on Gold, Juno, and Sword beaches, where they faced less intense resistance, but still had to contend with a range of German strongpoints and defensive positions. As the battle raged on, the Allies began to gain the upper hand, with their superior numbers and firepower gradually wearing down the German defenses. The Germans, however, refused to give up, and the fighting continued to be intense and brutal. The Allies suffered heavy casualties, particularly on Omaha Beach, where the Americans lost over 2,000 men in the first few hours of the battle. The Germans, meanwhile, were taking a pounding from the Allied air and naval forces, and their positions were beginning to crumble. The turning point of the battle came when the Allies were able to establish a solid foothold on the beaches and begin to push inland. The British and Canadians were able to link up with the Americans, and the three forces began to push forward, using their combined strength to overwhelm the German defenses. The Germans, meanwhile, were struggling to maintain their positions, and their lines were beginning to break. As the day wore on, the Allies continued to gain ground, and the Germans were forced to fall back, eventually abandoning their defensive positions and retreating inland. The final phase of the battle saw the Allies pouring ashore in increasing numbers as the German defenses continued to crumble. The specialized tanks, including the Churchill AVREs and M4 Sherman DDs, played a key role in this phase, providing close support to the infantry as they pushed forward. The Allied aircraft, meanwhile, continued to provide close air support, using their bombs and rockets to take out German strongpoints and defensive positions. As the sun began to set on June 6, 1944, the Allies had established a solid foothold on the beaches of Normandy, and the Germans were in full retreat. The battle had been fierce and intense, but in the end, the Allies had emerged victorious, paving the way for the liberation of Western Europe from German occupation. The aftermath of the D-Day invasion was a testament to the bravery and resilience of the Allied forces. As the dust settled on the beaches of Normandy, the true extent of the damage and the sacrifices made became clear. The turning point of the battle had been the successful landing on Omaha Beach, where the bravery and quick thinking of the soldiers had overcome the heavily fortified German defenses. The turning point was caused by a combination of factors, including the bravery of the soldiers, the effective use of naval and air support, and the element of surprise. The Germans had expected the invasion to take place at the Pas de Calais, and their defenses were concentrated in that area. The Allies, however, had chosen to invade at Normandy, catching the Germans off guard and allowing them to gain a foothold on the continent. As the Allies began to push inland, they faced fierce resistance from the German army, but they were able to overcome it through sheer determination and force of will. The legacy of the D-Day invasion can still be seen today. The bravery and sacrifice of the soldiers who fought on that day paved the way for the Allied victory in World War II, and their actions will always be remembered as a testament to the power of courage and determination. The invasion also marked a significant turning point in the development of modern warfare, as it demonstrated the importance of combined arms operations and the use of airborne and amphibious assaults. The D-Day invasion showed that with careful planning, precise execution, and a bit of luck, even the most heavily fortified defenses could be breached. In the years that followed, the lessons learned on D-Day would be applied to future conflicts. From the Korean War to the Gulf War, the use of airborne and amphibious assaults became a staple of modern military doctrine, and the importance of combined arms operations was recognized as a key factor in achieving success on the battlefield. The D-Day invasion also marked a significant shift in the balance of power between the Allies and the Axis powers, as it demonstrated that the Allies had the capability to launch large-scale operations against heavily fortified enemy positions. As the years passed, the D-Day invasion became a legendary event, symbolizing the bravery and sacrifice of the soldiers who fought on that day. The beaches of Normandy, where so many young men had lost their lives, became a place of pilgrimage for veterans and their families, and the cemeteries where the fallen were buried became a poignant reminder of the human cost of war. The D-Day invasion also became a powerful symbol of freedom and democracy, as it marked the beginning of the end of the Nazi occupation of Europe and the liberation of millions of people from tyranny. The impact of the D-Day invasion can still be felt today, as it continues to inspire new generations of soldiers and civilians alike. The bravery and sacrifice of the soldiers who fought on that day will always be remembered as a testament to the power of human courage and determination, and their actions will continue to inspire people around the world. As we look back on the events of D-Day, we are reminded of the importance of standing up for what is right, even in the face of overwhelming opposition, and of the need to always remember the sacrifices made by those who have come before us. In the end, the D-Day invasion was a testament to the power of human courage and determination, and it will always be remembered as one of the most significant events in modern history. The bravery and sacrifice of the soldiers who fought on that day will never be forgotten, and their actions will continue to inspire people around the world for generations to come. As we reflect on the legacy of D-Day, we are reminded of the importance of freedom, democracy, and the human spirit, and we are inspired to continue working towards a world where such sacrifices will never have to be made again. The story of D-Day is a powerful reminder of the enduring power of courage, sacrifice, and the human spirit, and it will continue to inspire and motivate people for generations to come. The declassified documents and personal accounts of the soldiers who fought on D-Day provide a unique glimpse into the events of that day, and they serve as a powerful reminder of the bravery and sacrifice of the soldiers who fought for our freedom. As we continue to learn from the lessons of D-Day, we are reminded of the importance of honoring the memories of those who have come before us, and of continuing to work towards a world where such sacrifices will never have to be made again. The legacy of D-Day will live on, a powerful reminder of the human spirit and its capacity for courage, sacrifice, and freedom.